Picture this. You're sitting on the toilet, 10 minutes go by, then 20, and nothing happens. Not a little, nothing. Your stomach feels tight, heavy, like there's a fist pressing from the inside. That's not just a bad day, that's your body telling you something is stuck. I'm Dr. Clark. I spend my time helping people over 60 understand what's happening inside their bodies and what they can do about it. And today we're talking about something almost nobody explains clearly: fecal impaction. It sounds clinical. It isn't rare. Every single week, people end up in emergency rooms because of it. Some walk out fine with straightforward treatment. Others end up fighting a serious infection in the hospital. Here's what almost nobody tells you. This doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, one meal at a time, from foods sitting in kitchens across this country right now. A few of them are even marketed as healthy. So before we get into what's on your plate, let's talk about what's actually happening inside your body, because constipation sounds like a minor inconvenience. What I'm describing today is not minor. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which 7 foods are working against you and exactly what to eat instead. And if you find this useful, go ahead and hit subscribe now so you don't lose track of this series. I release new videos every week on gut health, senior mobility, and healthy aging after 60. Okay, let's start with what's actually going on inside your gut. Your colon has one main job: move digested food toward the rectum, pull water out along the way, and leave behind soft, passable stool. Normally, that trip takes somewhere between 1 and 3 days. When things slow down, because there isn't enough fiber or not enough water or too much fat, your colon keeps doing its job of pulling out water, except now it's pulling water out of stool that's been sitting there far too long. The longer it sits, the harder and drier it gets. Eventually, your muscles can't generate enough force to push it out anymore. The nerves that usually send you that "it's time to go" signal stop firing the way they should. And new waste keeps arriving behind it with nowhere to go. As that blockage grows, pressure builds inside your bowel. The wall of your colon, which is normally thick and muscular, starts to stretch. And if it stretches too far, it can thin out. In rare cases, it tears. When that happens, bacteria that live inside your gut, billions of them, spread into your abdominal cavity. That's called sepsis, and it can become life-threatening within hours. That's the extreme end. Most people never get there, especially if they catch the warning signs early. So here's what to watch for: severe constipation lasting more than 3 days, bloating that keeps getting worse instead of better, pain in your lower belly that doesn't come and go, it just stays there, feeling like you still need to go even right after you tried, and liquid stool leaking out when nothing solid is moving. That last one trips people up the most, because it looks like things are finally moving. They're not. That liquid is often leaking around a hard blockage that's still sitting there. If you notice any combination of these, don't wait it out at home. Call your doctor that same day. Older adults are at higher risk. People with limited mobility are at higher risk. And anyone on certain medications, like opioids or iron supplements, is at higher risk too. But the piece you have the most control over, every single day, is what you eat. So let's get into that. Before we get to food number 1, I want you to know something simple. I've put together a free printable checklist of all 7 foods and what to replace them with, and you can find it in the description box below this video. No sign up, no complicated steps. Just something you can print and stick on your refrigerator. Now, the first food shows up on breakfast plates, lunch plates, and dinner plates across this country every single day: processed red meat. Bacon, sausage, hot dogs, deli ham, salami, bologna, pepperoni, anything cured, smoked, salted, or chemically preserved to last longer on the shelf. The most obvious problem is fiber, or rather, the total lack of it. Processed meat contains close to 0 dietary fiber, and fiber isn't a nice extra for your gut, it's the actual structure of healthy stool. It gives stool its bulk and its softness. Without it, everything moving through your colon is dense and slow from the very start. But fiber is only part of the story. Processed meats are also loaded with sodium, and high sodium intake pulls water out of your body's tissue, including your colon. Your colon is already working to absorb moisture from stool as part of normal digestion. Add extra sodium on top of that, and you create a drying effect that gets worse the longer food sits there. Then there are the nitrates and preservatives used to keep these meats shelf-stable. Research has shown these compounds can disrupt the balance of bacteria living in your gut, and that balance is what keeps your digestion moving at a normal rhythm. And here's something worth knowing for your long-term health, not just this week. The World Health Organization classifies processed red meat as a Group 1 carcinogen for colorectal cancer, the same category as tobacco. I'm not telling you that one serving of bacon will cause disease. I'm telling you that routine, daily consumption carries real, documented risk that goes beyond just feeling backed up. This is actually a good moment to mention something practical for digestive health after 60. Medicare covers your screening colonoscopy, and that screening is one of the best tools we have for catching problems early, long before they become emergencies. So if you're due for one, don't put it off. As for what to eat instead of processed meat, fresh grilled chicken, baked fish, eggs, beans, and lentils. These give you protein without the sodium, without the preservatives, and legumes bring fiber along with them for free. The second food is on almost every plate at almost every meal in the modern diet. White bread, white rice, regular pasta, bagels, croissants, flour tortillas, and crackers made from refined white flour. Here's what most people don't know about how that flour gets made. Whole grain has three parts: the bran, which is where almost all the fiber lives, the germ, which carries vitamins and healthy fats, and the endosperm, which is mostly starch. When grain gets refined into white flour, the bran and the germ get stripped away completely. What's left is the endosperm, pure starch, almost no fiber, and a food that raises your blood sugar within minutes of eating it. Inside your colon, refined starch does something specific. It mixes with digestive fluid and forms a thick, sticky mass, not stool, more like paste. That paste coats the walls of your intestine, slows down everything moving behind it, and gives the good bacteria in your gut almost nothing useful to work with. When I look at the diets of people dealing with ongoing constipation and no other clear medical reason, refined flour shows up at almost every single meal. White toast at breakfast, a white roll at lunch, pasta or white rice at dinner. Their gut has been running on this kind of paste for years, and nobody ever connected those two things. The fix here is simple, even if the adjustment takes a little getting used to. Whole grain bread, brown rice, oats, quinoa, barley, and whole wheat pasta. Give your taste buds about a week to adjust. After that, you won't miss the white version, and your colon will be doing a lot less work. The third food surprises people because dairy gets talked about as part of a balanced diet, and for a lot of people in reasonable amounts, that's true. But in the quantities a lot of adults over 50 are eating it, especially hard cheeses like cheddar, Parmesan, and mozzarella, it can become one of the more common constipation triggers I see. Here's the mechanism. Dairy contains a protein called casein, which digests more slowly than most other proteins. As it moves through your intestines, it can bind with other food and create a dense mass. Hard cheese adds two more factors on top of that: almost no water content and a high concentration of fat. Slow digesting protein, no fiber, very little water, and a lot of fat. For some people, that combination adds up and slows things down significantly. There's also the lactose piece. A meaningful number of adults lose some ability to digest lactose as they get older, and most of them have never been formally tested for it. They've spent years blaming their bloating and irregular digestion on stress or on just how their body is, without ever tracing it back to the cheese, the milk, and the ice cream adding up across the day. I'm not telling you to cut out dairy completely. I'm asking you to be honest with yourself about how much you're actually eating in a day, and to pay attention to whether cutting back changes how you feel. For a lot of people, the answer is yes, and it shows up within just a few days. The fourth food is probably the one you expected to see on this list: fried food and fast food. French fries, fried chicken, onion rings, battered fish, drive-through burgers, anything cooked in a deep fryer full of industrial oil. You might not be surprised it's here, but the mechanism matters because fried food doesn't just add general health risk. It works against your digestion in several ways at the same time. First, fat. Fried food is saturated in it, and dietary fat is the slowest macronutrient for your body to move through the digestive system. High fat intake slows down how quickly your stomach empties, which means food sits there longer before it even reaches your intestines. That slow start affects everything downstream. Stool spends more time sitting in the colon, more water gets pulled out of it, and it gets harder. That's a fairly direct path toward impaction. Second, there's the water problem. Fried food is essentially dehydrated food that's been coated in oil, so it doesn't bring much moisture with it at all. And third, inflammation. Eating fried food regularly drives ongoing low-grade inflammation in the lining of your intestines, and that inflammation can damage the tissue responsible for the rhythmic muscle contractions, called peristalsis, that push stool forward. Over time, those contractions get weaker, and the whole system slows down. People who eat fast food 4 or 5 times a week rarely describe themselves as constipated. They've just normalized feeling bloated and heavy, and they assume that's how their body works now. That normalization is what worries me most, because it delays people from getting help for years. The fix is straightforward, even if it takes some habit shifting. Cook at home when you can. Bake it, grill it, roast it, or steam it. The inflammation clears up faster than you'd expect once the source is removed. If you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who takes their health seriously. And that's exactly who this channel is for. Before we move on, drop a comment and tell me which of these first 4 surprised you the most. I read every one. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe because next week's episode builds directly on today's list. Now, food number 5 is the one that catches people most off guard, because it's usually seen as one of the healthiest things you can eat. Bananas. Specifically, unripe bananas. The ones that are solid yellow with green tips, or still visibly green when you peel them. This one surprises people because bananas have a reputation as a gentle, gut-friendly food, and there's some truth to that, but only under specific conditions. A fully ripe banana, one with brown speckles just starting to show on the peel, contains soluble fiber that moves through your gut fairly gently, and that version is genuinely fine for most people. An unripe banana is a different story. Green and partially green bananas are high in something called resistant starch, a type of carbohydrate your small intestine can't fully break down. When that resistant starch reaches your colon, it can act almost like a thickening agent, slowing motility down, especially if you're not drinking enough water. Unripe bananas also carry higher levels of tannins, compounds known to slow down intestinal movement. In fact, tannins are sometimes used to help with diarrhea, precisely because they put the brakes on gut motion. If your gut is already sluggish, that's the last thing you need. I've seen people eating 2 or 3 bananas a day, completely convinced they're doing something good for themselves, and they can't figure out why nothing's moving. When you ask them to describe the banana, it's almost always firm and green, because that's the texture they prefer. Switching to fully ripe bananas, along with adding some variety, resolves this faster than almost anything else on this list. I'm not telling you to stop eating bananas. I'm telling you that ripeness matters, and variety matters. Rotate in berries, pears, apples, and prunes across the week. No single fruit should be carrying your entire digestive health on its own. The 6th item isn't technically a food, it's a drink. And in my experience, it's one of the most underestimated drivers of chronic constipation in adults over 50. Regular soda, energy drinks, sweetened iced tea, fruit punch, and even some vitamin waters that carry more added sugar than the label makes obvious. All of these share one consequence. They're being consumed in place of water. And your colon's ability to keep stool soft depends entirely on water. Your colon is designed to pull fluid from stool as it passes through, and the moisture it draws on comes from what you drink throughout the day. When you replace plain water with sugary drinks, you're not hydrating your colon, you're competing with it for moisture. The result is consistently drier, harder stool. There's also a microbiome effect. The beneficial bacteria that help regulate motility feed on specific nutrients, and a heavy daily sugar load tends to favor the bacteria that don't help you, at the expense of the ones that do. Over months and years, that imbalance can leave you with a gut that's slower and less predictable. And diet sodas aren't automatically a safe swap either. Some research suggests certain artificial sweeteners can alter gut bacteria and slow intestinal transit in a meaningful number of people. I've seen people cut out soda completely, switch to water, and start having regular bowel movements again within about 10 to 14 days, without changing anything else about their diet. The target is simple: plain water, 6 to 8 glasses a day, spread out through the day rather than all at once. If you drink soda daily, I want you to try something this week. Replace just one of those sodas with a full glass of water each day. Let me know in the comments how you feel after 7 days. I'm genuinely curious. The 7th and final food is the category that's quietly become the biggest source of daily calories in the modern diet: ultra-processed snacks. Packaged potato chips, cookies from a plastic sleeve, cheese crackers, cheese puffs, flavored pretzels, instant noodles, and granola bars with more sugar in them than an actual candy bar. Basically anything in a sealed bag with 15 or 20 ingredients, most of which don't resemble real food at all. These products are engineered to override your body's natural sense of fullness. The flavoring is precise enough that your brain keeps signaling hunger even after you've eaten enough, so you end up eating more than you meant to. And while that's happening, here's what it's doing inside your gut. Ultra-processed snacks have almost no dietary fiber and almost no water in them. They're loaded with sodium, which pulls moisture straight out of your colon wall, and they're filled with emulsifiers, artificial colorings, and preservatives that research has linked to damage in the lining of your intestines, the thin layer of cells responsible for absorbing nutrients and keeping your gut bacteria balanced. Multiple studies have connected higher intake of ultra-processed foods with a greater risk of digestive problems, including chronic constipation, and that connection shows up consistently across different populations. Here's the structural problem underneath all of this. Because these snacks are calorie-dense, convenient, and satisfying in the short term, they replace real food. That afternoon bag of chips means no apple, no handful of nuts, nothing that actually helps your colon. That kind of displacement adds up quietly, month after month, year after year. A simple habit that helps. Read the label. If the ingredient list runs past 5 or 6 items, and most of them aren't things you'd find in a home kitchen, reach for something else instead. Raw nuts, fresh fruit, vegetables with hummus, or a hard-boiled egg. These aren't complicated swaps, and your colon will register the difference within days. Let me walk you through a scenario just to make this real. Imagine someone in her early 70s, we'll call her Margaret just as an example, not a real person, who hadn't had a full bowel movement in 8 days. She felt nauseated, had barely eaten in 2 days, and her stomach was distended and hard to the touch. If you looked at what a typical day of eating might look like for someone in that position, it would probably map almost exactly onto the 7 foods we just walked through. White toast and bacon in the morning, crackers with a thick wedge of cheddar in the afternoon, sweetened iced tea with every meal, fried food or takeout over white rice most nights, almost no fruits or vegetables, barely any water all day long, and for years she might have just assumed she had a sensitive stomach, without ever connecting it to what she was eating every single day. That's the pattern I want you to walk away from today. Not fear, just awareness. The foods in a scenario like that one are on millions of plates right now, and most people eating them have no idea what's slowly building up inside them. So now that you know what to pull off your plate, let's talk about what to put on it instead. Because a list of things to avoid without a clear path forward isn't useful. It's just something else to worry about. Start with fiber. The target for most adults is 25 to 35 grams a day, and most people in this country are getting somewhere under 15. That gap right there is where chronic constipation tends to live. The best sources are leafy greens like spinach, kale, and Swiss chard, chia seeds, ground flaxseed, prunes, which are actually well documented to improve stool frequency, lentils, black beans, chickpeas, whole oats, apples and pears with the skin left on, and berries. You don't need all of these in one meal. You need them showing up consistently across your week. Next, water. 6 to 8 glasses a day, minimum. And here's something important. If you're increasing your fiber intake, you need to increase your water intake right along with it. Fiber without enough water doesn't soften stool. It actually pulls water away from what's already in your colon, and that can make things worse, not better. Try drinking a full glass of water first thing in the morning, before anything else, and then sip steadily through the day instead of drinking a lot all at once. Next, move your body. A 20 to 30-minute walk every day, even at a relaxed pace, stimulates the network of nerves in your intestinal wall that coordinates bowel contractions. This is one of the simplest, most underused tools in senior mobility and healthy aging after 60, and it costs nothing. People who sit for most of the day have noticeably higher rates of constipation at any age. And here's one more thing that matters more than people realize. When your body signals that it's time to go, go. Don't hold it. Don't wait until it's more convenient. Repeatedly ignoring that signal, over weeks and months, actually trains your body to stop sending it as clearly. That's how people end up going 3 or 4 days between bowel movements and think nothing of it. Finally, if you experience severe constipation lasting more than 3 days, abdominal pain that won't let up, vomiting, blood in your stool, or liquid leaking out around what feels like a hard blockage, contact your doctor that same day. These aren't symptoms to manage quietly at home. Your colon does something remarkable every single day of your life. It processes everything you eat, manages a community of bacteria in the trillions, and moves waste through about 5 feet of intestinal tissue, all while pulling out exactly the water your body needs. You almost never think about it until the day it stops working the way it should. Here's the encouraging part, and I want you to actually hold on to this. The foods we talked about today are common, they're convenient, and they're on most plates at most meals across this country, which means the fix is just as available to you as the problem was, and your body responds to improvement fast. People who make real changes, more fiber, more water, fewer processed foods, less fried food, less refined starch, almost always notice a difference within a week, and sometimes within just a few days. Your colon is resilient. It's built to function well. It just needs the conditions that let it do that. You can't undo every meal you've already eaten, but you can decide what the next one looks like, and the one after that. Every plate is a choice. Every glass of water is a choice. Every time you reach for a pear instead of a bag of chips, that's a choice too. Small as they seem, those choices add up over months and years, and they end up being the real difference between a colon that keeps working well into your 80s and a trip to the emergency room that took years to build up to. I've put together that free printable checklist with all 7 foods and their replacements, and you'll find it in the description box right below this video. Print it, stick it on your fridge, and use it as a quick reference when you're making your grocery list. I'm Dr. Clerk, and I hope today's episode gave you something useful. Do 2 things for me. Hit subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode, and leave a comment letting me know which of these 7 foods you're cutting back on first. I read every single one. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Your gut works hard for you. Give it what it needs.